So here's the biggest fear that I always have as a speaker at events. My biggest fear as a speaker at events is that somebody who's on the agenda before me is going to say something that I was going to say and kind of steal my thunder a little bit. And after the first 15 minutes of Bob's presentation yesterday afternoon, I knew I had to rewrite my entire presentation for this morning. All right, thank you guys very much for your time here today. I'm the Executive Experience Officer at DBSI. We're a local design build firm, but I'm really not here to talk to you about design build. I'm here to talk to you about people and process. A really good friend of mine, Marbu Brown, wrote a good book recently that I'd encourage you to pick up. It's called Blueprint to Customer Obsession. And it was that phrase, customer obsession, really caught me because we often use the phrase customer centricity. And so what Marbu shares is customer centricity, the bar is just simply too low. It's become a throwaway phrase of sorts. And what would be the difference between a company that says that they're customer centric versus a company that says that they're customer obsessed? What would be those things that are different about that? And so I want to dive into some of those things with you today. Yeah, maybe talk to you a little bit about why your experience sucks, why your employees are maybe the ones to blame or probably the ones to blame. And I want to dive a little bit into Gen Z. We should talk about those brats a little bit. I haven't heard them brought up yet during the course of this event. So let's discuss. And I want to leave you with 4 things that not only Gen Z is looking for out of their retail experience, but that your employees play a massive role in delivering. Because there's nothing worse than you guys busting your butts to deliver and design and build the coolest crap on earth, only for your employees to come in and then mess the whole thing up. Also, I'm going to reference a couple brands during the course of today's presentation. Most of them in a complimentary way, 1 or 2 in a not so complimentary way. I didn't know who was coming to this thing prior. So I'm like sweating bullets in the back of the room, flipping through like the little book. And the good news is that the people that I was gonna not talk so nicely about, they ain't here. And the people who are like here that I was gonna talk about, like we're good. So I caught this headline out of Bloomberg that I wanted to call your attention to. And I don't know if you guys caught this, but millennials, people like to crap on millennials all the time. And I mean, sometimes I do too. Actually, raise your hand if you're a millennial. Are there any Gen Zs in the room? Okay, 1. I just like to know who's easily offended in my audience beforehand. So perfect. So millennials and Gen Zs, I cannot reinforce this enough, could not be more different. Retailers, brands, the media, they like to kind of put them all in the same box. Say Gen Zs are just younger millennials. No, fake. In fact, so much so that Bloomberg went on to share that millennials tried to kill them all, and Gen Zs are going to try to rein it back. And there's a variety of different reasons for that, a global pandemic being one of them. Gen Zs had a very different experience than millennials did in terms of being stuck at home, nowhere to go, no friends to hang out with. In other words, they lost something and had a better valuation for what they lost. They're like, we used to be able to go to the mall, we used to be able to go here, we used to be able to go there, now we can't. And so when that all reopened, they were pretty stoked with it. I want to talk a little bit, though, about the convergence of digital and physical, because if we're going to talk about Gen Zs and what they want out of an experience, it'd be irresponsible of us to only talk about the brick and mortar experience. So last year, I helped co-author a study with a consulting firm called APC. It was called On the Record with Gen Z. And one of the things that we learned in that study was this amazing percentage of Gen Zs and millennials that have a retail app on their phone. They want to be able to engage with the retailer prior to maybe even arriving. When I was listening to the talk yesterday with Good American, I was thinking to myself, I was like, I can imagine my wife or my daughter going onto an app, engaging with that brand, making some pre-decisions prior to going into the retail environment, like almost prepping a little bit for that visit before making that in-person purchase decision. But when we juxtapose retail against other industries, like, for example, food service, we start to see a little bit of a spread, at least with millennials. So retail app experience is an important channel, especially when married to the physical brick and mortar experience. The other thing, though, that we asked in this Gen Z study was, where do you want to engage with a brand when it comes to social media? I love weaving social media into the physical brick and mortar experience. We're going to talk about that a little bit in a minute in my big 4 takeaways. But so we asked, where are you? Where are you hanging out on social, to the point where what social channels would you recommend a brand leverage if they wanted to communicate with you effectively? And there were really only 3 that came up. They were TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And so most notably missing is Facebook. Say it loud, say it proud. Facebook is missing. Okay. No lie, somebody in my audience once said MySpace. Swear to God. They were not a millennial, nor were they a Gen Z, of course. So I just saw Tom in the news the other day. You guys remember Tom from MySpace? He was in the news. I can't remember why, but I was like, that dude's still alive. Good for him. Like, fantastic. Good for you. Go Tom. So Facebook is missing. It's really boiled down to these 3 channels. These are the places where the Gen Zs and the millennials are hanging out. So again, if you want to engage with them, if you want to have your physical brick and mortar brand speaking to a millennial or a Gen Z, where they're hanging out, this is where they're at. A couple other statistics, and then I'm not going to chart and graph you anymore because charts and graphs suck. U.S. Census Bureau has this nice little projection of retail sales, brick and mortar retail sales in the United States. You guys have probably seen this chart because you're in the business and you get it. We had one little temper tantrum in 2020. I think you know why. And then otherwise, we're growing, we're good. But here's the part that bothers me, is while y'all are generally crushing it in terms of exponential growth of brick and mortar retail sales, your experience kind of sucks. So when we look at Net Promoter, when we look at NPS amongst retail in general, it tends to be under 40. Now, NPS of 40 used to be good, but now we say 40 is the new 50. Excuse me, 50 is the new 40, not just with age, but with NPS too. 50 is kind of the bar you want to be hanging out at when it comes to Net Promoter. And so if we're hovering in the 30s or God forbid the 20s, that's not a place that we want to spend our time. So why are we? Why are we developing really cool, innovative retail experiences? Why are we having these awesome digital wow walls, these cool menu boards, and badass music, and cool lighting, and awesome scents piped in? We're doing all this cool stuff, and yet still the consumer's sitting there going like, still kind of not feeling it. Oftentimes, it comes down to your people. And so what are 4 things that your people could help you improve on? And that will especially play into that Gen Z consumer, who right now, some of them haven't even had their bar mitzvah yet. Some of them are like 12 years old, 13 years old. They're just kind of starting to spend money, but you need to capitalize on them right now. I mean, not if you're like the dude from Total Wine. I don't know where he went, but like, there you go. I love your store, dude. Actually, can I give you a quick thank you publicly? Sure. All kidding aside, Total Wine did something super cool, totally off script. I wasn't planning on giving you props, but I am now. So my wife quit drinking. Not because she was a raging alcoholic, but she just up in like dry January that never ended. You guys have the greatest selection in your store for people who want to feel socially involved, but who don't drink. The non-alcoholic or alcohol removed, I should say, wines and liquors, that whole space is growing, and you guys have done a good job giving floor space to that, so thank you for that. Very, very cool. Very cool. So 4 things that we want you and your employees to do to capitalize on Gen Z and make your spaces really come to life. The first of which is authenticity. This is like God's gift to keynote speakers and comedians. Fantastic. There are a few brands that have always struck me as being wildly authentic, some of which are in the room today. Wegmans is in the room, I think. I like when I go to Wegmans, which I live in Charleston, South Carolina. We don't have Wegmans yet. If y'all could work on that, that'd be great. I could talk about cheese with the person at the cheese counter at Wegmans for like an hour. And they will know about cheese, they will care about cheese, they will give me all the cheese information that I need. But it's genuine, it's real. You can tell that like they're not working at the cheese section today, and then maybe tomorrow they're ringing up crap on the register, and then the day after that maybe they're working in produce. No, this is the cheese person. Another one I want to talk about, LL Bean. I used to live in New England where LL Bean is like Like if you don't have an LL Bean backpack and you live in Maine, they kick you out. They kick you to New Hampshire or Massachusetts. They actually make you leave Maine and you have to go elsewhere. Another brand though, wildly authentic, the people in the LL Bean stores, especially if you're ever in Maine and you get a chance to go to the flagship store, those people in that store, they so genuinely care about the brand. But one of the logos that you see on your screen, and they may be in the room, is Lululemon. I want to talk to you for a second about Lululemon. This brand intimidated the crap out of me when my wife was like, honey, you should buy some Lululemon pants. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. And the reason being is because, first of all, it didn't appear accessible to me as a dude. I was like, am I going to go into a Lululemon store and actually find something that is going to work for me? That was number one. Number two is everybody who works there is so hot. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to go in there and this really hot girl is going to try to give me these pants to try on. I'm just going to feel like an idiot. And I feel like a yoga class could just break out right in the middle of the place. But again, everybody is authentic to the brand when I go into a Lululemon store. And it wasn't until I wanted to buy my wife a Christmas present and I went to Lululemon.com and I was like, I am too stupid to know what size I was too stupid to go into the closet and see what size she already had. That's why I was too stupid. But I was sitting there too dumb to kind of figure it all out. So I'm like, I'm going to go to my local Lululemon store. And the woman who helped me just couldn't have been nicer and more consultative. And she got me what I needed. She sold me this jacket. Did you know Lululemon made like really nice like men's jackets too? So she extended the brand to me in a way that really made me feel comfortable. And now I have no problem going to a Lululemon store. I love going to a Lululemon store. It's all good. But I really appreciate, though, too, how I don't have to figure things out when I go into a Lululemon store. It's really well organized. I know where everything's at. I can kind of zero in on things. The people are really nice and super approachable because they're on brand. They legitimately care about the lifestyle that is associated with the Lululemon brand. Now, have they been trained for that? Probably not. They were hired for it first. And so that's one of the big lessons that I want to give you when it comes to authenticity, is that as you are working on like a store of the future, right? And you get all these smart people in your brand around the room and you're ideating around what is the future of our retail experience going to be? If you don't invite HR to that meeting, you've failed from the very first moment that you started to have that conversation. Because who's going to end up building the design of the persona of the person who's going to work in that store? It's not going to be you. God forbid it's the store manager who's running the place. You need to start from day one on what is the design of the human being who's going to deliver this experience, this beautiful, well-organized Lululemon experience. I love the organization, as opposed to when I go into TJ Maxx and there's just shit everywhere. And it occurs to me that the person that is hired to work in a TJ Maxx store is wildly less passionate about the things that are sold in that store versus the person who's working in a Lululemon store. Do you guys see the wallpaper strategically placed in the furniture section? That's where you think to look for wallpaper, right? But it's amazing how every TJ Maxx store you go to, there's just shit everywhere. But what I've learned is that's not a problem with the parent company, it's a problem with the brand. Because TJX has a newer store called HomeSense. It's like Home Goods on crack. That place is actually reasonably organized. The people in that store actually reasonably care about the home goods that they sell there. So it's really not a parent company problem, it's actually a little bit more of a brand issue. But the people being authentic to the brand that you're delivering is step number one in making sure that your design and your experience doesn't suck. The next is bringing the whole thing to life, making it experiential. My family loves going on cruises. Any of you guys cruise on cruise lines? Some people are like, hell no, I'll get like diarrhea. And then other people are like, yeah, I like to cruise. We like to go on Royal Caribbean. And we just went on a Royal Caribbean cruise about, 6 weeks ago, give or take. On the brand new Icon of the Seas, it's the biggest cruise ship in the world. And when I asked my Gen Z daughter, my 15-year-old daughter, what is the number one thing that you're looking forward to about our cruise? She cruises all the time. She said, Dad, I want to make sure that I go get a picture of myself alone in this thing called the Pearl. Let me describe to you what, actually, you know what? I'm not going to describe to you what the Pearl is. I got a little video from Royal Caribbean and took about 45 seconds. Here's what the Pearl is all about.
Pearl is not only this incredible experiential installation, it's also this superstructure that allows us to open up the side of the ship.
Through one of the architectural explorations that we did came the idea of this large orb in the center of the ship.
It's hard to put into context. It's a bit art, a bit sculpture, a bit experience.
Everybody's going to interact and experience the Pearl in their own way. It's beautiful. It's spatially so large that once you experience it, you can't quite get your head around it.
And so this is the very first thing you see when you get on Icon of the Seas is this massive structure that is literally holding the ship up, as they said in the video. They leveraged it to create a wall of glass, which on a cruise ship is not very, very easy. And so there's my adorable 3 kids. There's Izzy and Paxton and Remington. And we probably took, 37,000 pictures in the Pearl during the course of the trip. And I told my daughter, look, if you want to get a picture of yourself in the Pearl alone, you better be up at like 3 in the morning because every other person, 7,000 people on this cruise ship, they all want to be taking pictures in the Pearl just like you. And the picture that you see in the lower right of your screen, so this is one that I took one morning having coffee. And so you've got this lady, and she's got her posse, she's got her peeps, and she's doing her little photo sesh one morning there in the Pearl. All good, right? Except what's missing from the equation in this experience is nowhere in sight is a Royal Caribbean employee to help make sure that that photo, that by the way is going to represent the brand and represent the experience, that that photo was knocked out of the park, that it was perfect, that it was done right. Now, meanwhile, if I go up to the buffet, there's like 8 dudes singing songs about washing my hands before I go into the buffet. But there is nobody there to say, let me help you take this picture. Hey, stand over here. It's where the best light is. Hey, can you hashtag it with hashtag Icon of the Seas, hashtag Royal Caribbean, whatever the case may be. That was the missing link of the equation to have that co-guided experience between the guest who cared a lot about this one particular picture and how that picture would be represented on places like Instagram and TikTok to drive brand awareness and awareness of this experience that you want to go viral. Is Target here? Did I see, is Target here anywhere? Yeah? What's up? How you doing? You had a display in Target stores. I don't know if it was nationwide, but living in Charleston, like pickleball is like a vibe. And so we had this whole pickleball thing in our local Target store for Prince. And I thought it was pretty cool because I thought a lot of the apparel was like a la Andre Agassi era of like Prince wear. And I was stunned because one day I go into Target, I didn't even know my kids were there, and they were taking like selfies with the mannequins and the whole thing. And I'm like, so this is an opportunity for a brand, not just Target, but for the Prince tennis brand to capitalize on. They've created an in-store experience that somebody actually cared enough about, or my kids are idiots, I don't know, but that they cared enough about that they actually wanted to take pictures and share those things. So again, kind of keep in mind, how can we weave into design, not only with design, but with our people, ways to help make sure that that experience that they had actually gets shared. So we've got authenticity, and we've got experiential. The third thing that I want you to take away is a custom experience. Something that if I'm the consumer, I feel that I have control over what's going to happen for me in the store. And all I could think of was that Burger King jingle. You know that jingle? It's like, BK, have it your way. What happens after that? You rule. How powerful is that thing, right? Like you all knew to say, you rule. It could have been a little louder. You guys drank a lot last night. It's okay. But having that idea of customizing not just the experience, but what I walk away with. And I want to give you a couple of tangible examples. One of which is in our line of work at DBSI, we've seen a lot of our clients, especially in retail, and I've seen it amongst other design build firms, doing a great job of giving control of the store experience right to the customer. Example, giving the customer the opportunity to help customize the playlist that is being played in the store while they're visiting. It's not that hard. It's not that hard to give the customer right there through their phone control over the playlist. I've seen some apparel brands, particularly in athletic wear, work to actually allow the consumer to post photos of themselves in the retail environment. So for example, if I were to walk into a Nike store and I play softball and my high school softball team has a Nike jersey on, wouldn't it be cool if I walked into a Nike store and, oh, it's not a picture of some famous athlete, it's a picture of me. I'm now a part of the retail experience. I'm ingrained in this store. I'm a part of it. But the other thing is I want to walk out with something that nobody else has, not just an experience, but something that is unique to me. And I will call out something very cool that Under Armour did. So I had the opportunity to be involved in this project several years ago where Under Armour was testing a concept called the direct print shoe. The idea was very simple. We want to offer footwear to the customer that they can come in, they can try on a shoe, but they're going to leave with a shoe that absolutely nobody on earth has. So this involved the customer actually sitting down at a kiosk, going through their own design experience. Before time, their shoe was put in a machine where their design was imprinted on the machine. They left with their sneaker in about 10 minutes. Versus like the Chuck Taylor, where you can go to the Converse website and you can design your Chuck and you're getting it like 6 weeks later. This one, I'm getting it right now. But what we learned very on in the experience with Under Armour was it had to be co-guided for two reasons. One of which is the customer we found needed an invitation to take advantage of the experience. Otherwise, they're like, what is this thing? I don't know. I'm going back over to the shoes over here. I don't get what that thing is. So number one was, how do we invite the customer to take advantage of something that we've just put into the store? No, that's number one. And number two is, frankly, brand protection. How do we make sure that a consumer isn't leaving with something that's going to make the Under Armour shoe look so ugly that we wouldn't actually end up being proud of the product? That co-guided experience was really, really key. Now, where else do we see that? We see that in places like Lulu. We see that in places like LL. I see that at places like Total Wine if I need a recommendation. Having experts who can have that co-guided experience is super key. So that's number three. Number four and final is a phrase that my friend Jean-Pierre Lacroix, who's a designer up in Toronto, he does a lot of CPG work. He coined this phrase, and I believe copyright means you have the right to copy, so I kind of stole it from him. And it's the phrase "Fizz-a-digital." Taking the digital experience and making sure that it has a place right there in your store. Now, again, this can be a perceived threat, though, to your employee. Self-checkout, for example. There's a perceived threat to the employee that, does this mean I'm going to be out of a job if I'm a cashier all of a sudden? Well, yes, if you otherwise deliver a sucky experience, then yeah, you will be out of a job. You will be replaced by the machine. However, if we have an employee who understands the way that they complement the machine, the device isn't a replacement for you, it's an addition. You're a complementary solution to one another. And here's how you play a role. We call that choreography. But we have to train that choreography to the employee, and that's something that I'm really passionate about. That's work that I really enjoy doing, is making sure that the employee is trained on, hey, we're putting this new thing in your store. Here's the role that you play in bringing that new thing to life. Here's where this device makes your life easier. I want to give you an example of a place where I thought this was like a great idea, but it kind of failed miserably. Most of you are going to probably fly home. And you're going to go to the Phoenix airport probably, and you're going to go see Hudson News. So this is the Hudson News at our airport in Charleston. And the new Hudson nonstop model. Has anybody gone through a Hudson nonstop model yet? Yeah. Did you find it like okay and intuitive? No problem? Somewhat. Okay. So if you've never visited a Hudson nonstop, basically the way it works is there's a toll gate. You can enter the store with your palm, or you can swipe a credit card, and that's how you're allowed into the store. And then the ceiling of the store is armed with hundreds of cameras and sensors, and it watches everything that you do, and it watches everything that you take. And so you just grab all the stuff that you want and you leave. Done. And so the card that you have on file with your palm or the card that you swipe to enter the store, it just gets hit about 5 minutes later for all the stuff that you took off the shelf with. As a dad, especially a dad of 2 boys, gives me heart palpitations because my little klepto kids just take all kinds of crap off the shelves. And I did wonder, is it going to recognize that they came in with me? And it actually does do a very good job. But I will tell you this honest to God story. So I'm at the Charleston airport, and I see this guy, and he's probably mid-50s, and he's standing there, and he's looking at this Hudson News like my dumb yellow lab stares at the ceiling fan. Like he doesn't get what this thing is. And so he stares at it for a little while, and he ends up walking away. And my curiosity got the best of me. I'm like, I got to go talk to this guy. So I hunt him down. I'm like, bud, I'm sorry. You just got to, I saw you stare at the store for like 2 minutes, and you made a very conscious decision not to go in. Can I ask you why? He's like, I just didn't know how it worked. Plain and simple, I didn't know how it worked. I said, well, what if I told you that all you had to do was swipe a credit card and you'd be allowed in the store and then you get whatever the hell you want and then you leave? Would you have still gone in? And his short answer was yes. But what's missing is that the Hudson model, this store is supposed to have an employee standing right there inviting the customer to enter, helping them understand how the whole thing works. That is that intersection of phys and digital, but the person has to be involved and they have to be invested in the experience. And I've used the word invitation a lot in this talk already. The customer has to be invited. So if you design something awesome and you design something new, especially if you're a heritage brand, you do you, boo. Like, do it. That's great. Get down with your bad self. But you have to make sure that somebody is there to invite the customer to take advantage of something that they perceive as new, that they perceive as different, and don't simply assume that they will adopt instantly. It's not a build it and they will come. But also, this is one of the final things I want to share with you is, don't fall into the trap of assuming that you have to have a phys-digital environment to have a great experience. Don't fall into the trap of assuming that you have to have wow walls, that you have to have digital signage, that you have to have cool interactive kiosks, that you have to have RFID chip-enabled dressing rooms, which are pretty cool, by the way. That stuff is all great, but there is a company, remember I talked about authenticity. There is a company that doesn't have any of that crap. And yet every time I walk in the door, it is packed with people. And they are spending buckets of money. And it's a little place called Trader Joe's. Man, they don't have anything in their store technologically at all. They have cash registers. That's what they got, and they're ancient. But you know what they do have is they have people who freaking love Trader Joe's. And they love every product in there. And they're sneaky little shits too. Because what they do, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, if you go to a Trader Joe's, because you go through there, and they're ringing in your stuff, and they don't even have a belt, right? They just have like the butcher block that you put your stuff on. And God forbid the cashier finds one item that you're buying that they get really excited about. Because that's all the topic of conversation now for the rest of the thing. To be like, oh, you got the new, I see you got the new ricotta and spinach stuffed ravioli, huh? I'm like, yeah. She's like, have you tried it yet? I'm like, no, I haven't tried it yet. She's like, it's the best. You're going to love it. But have you tried our new marinara sauce? Like, and the second they ask you that question, you go, shit, here we go. Like, here comes the marinara sauce. And what Trader Joe's is actually really smart. So they strategically will typically have 2 or 3 employees who are hovering in between the start of the aisles and the registers. And that's for that moment where my cashier can be like, Joe, can you get me 1 jar of the marinara? He hasn't seen it yet. And now Joe scurries off, gets the jar of the marinara, comes on over, and now I've been upsold a jar of marinara. But it is really only because of the degree to which the employee was otherwise passionate about my ravioli and engaged in conversation about my ricotta and spinach ravioli and how I had to have the Trader Joe's marinara sauce to go perfectly with my $3 chuck. Used to be 2, right? My $3 chuck and my ravioli. But that person cared, and they're having fun, and they enjoy their work, and they genuinely want to be there. But again, they've hired for that. There's very little training that happens at Trader Joe's. They behaviorally hired a person who matched the brand, who's going to be wildly authentic, and then they put process in place to bring the whole thing to life. So that person that you're looking for, they're probably an extrovert. They're probably impatient. They want to be bouncing all around the store. They don't want to be standing in one place the whole time. They want to be curious about the needs of the customer. They want to collaborate with people. They want to be flexible to the point where they can make your experience the experience that they're looking for too. So I implore you, please, in closing, work with your HR departments. Design the persona of the person who's going to make your retail experience not suck as much as you work to design the physical brick and mortar space. And then make sure that there are processes in place to empower those amazing employees to deliver on the experience that you work so hard to create. My name is EJ. Thank you very much for your time this morning. I look forward to talking to you soon.